it's Leanne. Please tell me that 2016 is over now. At the time that you're seeing this video, I really hope that the pain has passed. That's right, it is the last day of 2016 and I am spending it in the style to which 2016 has made me accustomed. I am rocking my jammies. I am rocking the frizzy just out of the shower look. I am drinking the cheapest of cheap and trashy Scottish alcohol. I am going to take you through the only things about 2016, except for my kittens, which are worth talking about. And that is my favourite books. You guys know that I usually do a top 10. I've done a top 10 this year, but I have kept my honourable mentions very succinct. I only have one, and that is Dear Mr. You by Mary Louise Parker. And the reason that this is not actually on my top 10 list for 2016 is because I rang in 2016 with this book and it left me with all the hopeful, positive, let's get going feelings, and then it all crumbled and died. In all seriousness, Dear Mr. You is an epistolary memoir written by Mary Louise Parker. There is no ghostwriter, she did it all herself, and it is set in letters to all of the men that she has met in her life who have had an influence on her, so not just those that she has had sex with or is related to. And it discusses from her early childhood through her early acting career all the way to the present day, all of the huge mistakes that Mary Louise Parker has made and the massive lows that she's sunk down to, but how she scraped herself back out of them. Not in a miraculous Hollywood style, but in a very real tooth, nails, grit and tears way, and I really appreciated that she did not pull any punches. So read this. Coming in at number 10 on the official 2016 top 10 chart, we have Nina Is Not Okay by Shappi Khorsandi. Nina Is Not Okay is about Nina, who is very much definitely not okay. She is a teenage character, but this is very much written for an adult audience. Nina, at the point that we pick her up, has just been turfed out of a club, very drunk. Very drunk. Much drunker than I am capable of getting on this. Although this is only the start. And Nina doesn't really remember why she's been kicked out of the club, but the consequences for why she have just start rolling like a big dung beetle shit pile, just getting bigger and bigger as it goes down the hill. I laughed, I cried, I rooted for Nina from page one, despite the fact that, you know, if you actually pass this chick in the street, you might give her the side eye and cross over because she's a bit of a disaster. I rooted for everybody in this book. Also, the finished copy is much prettier. Coming in at number 9 on my list is This Is How You Lose Her by Junot Diaz. My heart when I talk about this book. This book is almost a perfect book for me. It's almost perfect. This book is about Junior, who is an immigrant to the US from the Dominican Republic. Junior, bless his little cotton socks, has been brought up in a household where there is zero respect for women, and his part of the Dominican Republic, this is how he was brought up. This is how his mother was taught to be as a woman. This is how the men in their neighbourhood were taught to behave as men. And this is something that he has brought to America as part of his experience, and something which he can't make work in America because the women that he's meeting are either Native American women, and by that I mean they are native to America, not Native American. And they have been taught that they have more rights than he wishes to afford them, or they are women from his own background and his own heritage who have progressive values about their culture and who similarly don't think that what he's doing is gonna fly. I will be picking up Junot Diaz's other books, and why is there only one in a short story collection? Get on the writing, dude. Get on the writing. Coming in at, I can't count, 10, 9, 8. Coming in at number 8 on my list is one that I have been absolutely remiss in chatting about on this channel, and it's because it comes in the middle of a series and I found it really difficult to be able to explain all the connotations of it because of the things that I can't spoil. However, I am going to mention it here, and it is Iron Kiss by Patricia Briggs. This is book 3 in the Mercy Thompson series. It is an urban fantasy series, but I would say in everything, in gender, in race, in sexual politics and feminist politics, it is completely different from everything else that I have read in the genre. It is so progressive. I absolutely love it. This book contains one of the most vividly, sensitively, intelligently, and I hate using the word progressive all the time, but progressively handled incidents of rape, and the way that the men and the very proactive men in her life reacted to this, and it's so hard, the way that they empowered her after this just knocked my socks off. It made me, it's amazing. I would say it's worth reading the first 2 books in this series just to get to this one. Coming in at number 7 on my list is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty. I've talked about this book ad nauseum on this channel since I read it later on in 2016. Essentially, this is Caitlin's memoir of becoming a mortuary technician and later a certified embalmer and funeral director. It is her first 8 years, I think, in the industry, and Caitlin has gone on to found a institution called the Order of the Good Death, which looks to promote more progressive, here's that word again, ways of looking at funeral care and more natural ways of burial and of grieving and thinking about death is something which is an ending, but which can be a beautiful ending filled with all of the things that you felt and believed in your life, and not something which preserves you in a marble box. Got a bit preachy there. You can also find Caitlin on Ask a Mortician on YouTube. If you're not sure whether you want to read this book or not, I advise just going over there and watching some of her videos, and if you think she is hilarious and sassy and incredibly smart and terrifyingly forward thinking, then pick up the book, because it was amazing. At number 6 on my list, we have Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Again, I have talked about this. In fact, I talked about it very recently. I talked about it when I did my last December book haul. This is the fault of Claire at the Book Fox after I DNF'd The Shining in a spectacular fashion, and she said, read this, no really, read this, no read this, read this. And so I read it, and I have to admit, I'm a bit of a Stephen King addict now. This was creepy, and it crawls into the back of your head, and it's essentially about a pet cemetery in a very small town which has been created by the kids of the town and maintained by them for a very long time. It's a tradition which has been passed down through the generations. Turns out though, not everything that gets buried in there stays there, if you know what I mean. And that's all I'm going to say about it, because anything else is more than what's in the back of the book and would be a massive spoiler. But I say, if you like creepy things, if you're not sure about Stephen King, do this one. At number 5 on my list is a book that I'm actually mildly ashamed of myself for not having further up my list, because it's one of my favourite books of all time, guys. It is literally one of my favourite books of all time. It is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. It is the second book in the Farseer trilogy. As a result, I cannot talk about it very much except in very, very vague terms. However, I will say that I find that a lot of second books in trilogies or in fantasy series in general are bridge books. They have a lot of great content in them and a lot of great character development, but they don't feel like they really go anywhere. This book, on the other hand, has all the things. This is the book where, this is Azkaban. This is Prisoner of Azkaban, wherein Fitz is growing up very rapidly, is finding out things that he couldn't have conceived of when he was more naive and he was younger, and he wanted to hold on to all of his ideas of how he thought the world should be, and he wanted to hold on to all of his idols as flawless people who would never lie to him. And then he finds out that Sirius Black is his godfather and that people have been lying to him about that for a long time. Well, no, not really. He doesn't really find out that. But that is the spirit of what he finds out. And this book is a mixture of Fitz clinging desperately onto his childhood and becoming a man and knowing that he's going to have to break away from all of that, but holding on to it because memories, and I love it. Coming in at number 4 on my list is a book that I definitely have not talked about before on this channel, except to say that I had read it because I was not emotionally ready to discuss it in any more detail than that, and it is Undying, a love story by Michelle Faber. This is a poetry collection. It is a collection which explores his wife who died of, I believe, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I could be wrong. I don't really want to flip through it to find out because it devastates me and I'll end up reading it all again, and I don't. Not tonight. The first half of this poetry collection is split into before his wife dies, reminisces on when he met her, on how their marriage has become what it is, on her diagnosis, on her slow breakdown of both self and body. And the second part of it is after literally in the moments after she has died, right up until present day, and how he's coping. And I couldn't handle it, but I could handle it because it was amazing. So read it if you're made of sturdier stuff than me. Maybe if you find the idea triggery, I would skip it because it's so raw and so emotional and there's just no backing away from it. You cannot reverse once you've started. But the next book on my list, coming in at number 3, and you're just going to have to pretend that that's a drum roll because I'm not actually going to insert a drum roll. Just pretend that that was tuneful. Is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. This novel is also the fault of Claire from the Book Fox, who has a lot to answer for this year. I DNF'd Gone Girl halfway through, partially because I was reading it during the time that I had a massive house fire and I was halfway through and I couldn't really, well, I couldn't carry on because I didn't have a book and died, but ashes and stuff. But when I repurchased a copy, I couldn't make myself plough back through it, and it might not be the book, it might be me, but I'm not going to pick it up and read it again to find out. And so Claire said, look, I really love Gillian Flynn, please give her another shot. I gave Dark Places a shot. I absolutely loved it. It is full of creepy, skeevy feelings. It made me feel dirty every time I picked it up. I felt like I needed a shower, but I also could not put it down. I compulsively read it. I finished this in such a short time, and it's not a small book. Essentially, this book is about Libby Day, who is the sole survivor of the Kinnicky farmhouse massacre. Libby was just a little girl when she was in the house when all of the rest of her family were brutally murdered. Her brother Ben has gone to prison for it on her evidence, and she has lived for a very long time on the charity of strangers that donated when she was little to a trust to make sure that she was looked after because she had no family left. That money has now run out, and a very creepy, weird disaster of a group who are an organisation who like to look into unsolved murders all the way back to sort of Jack the Ripper would really like to interview her and would give her money for this. So she says yes and goes along. That was a mistake, or not a mistake, depending on what you think when you start reading it. I absolutely say if you like thrillers. Coming in at number 2 on my list is a book that I'm not going to talk too terribly much about because I feel like it has done the rounds so much on BookTube that if you've heard about it once, you've heard about it 100 times. There's not a lot I can say to contribute to the discussion that has already been had on it, and you might be sick of it by now and it might be putting you off, and I don't want it to put you off because I want you to read the book. It's The Tidal Zone by Sarah Moss. I had no idea who Sarah Moss was. I received this book for review. I was kind of on the fence about it. It sounded very literary fiction, which I love but was not very much in the mood for at the time, and then I started reading and I could not put it down. This is about a small family with a stay-at-home dad who is at home one day and gets a phone call and is told that his teenage daughter has stopped breathing at school, has been rushed to hospital, and they have no idea what's wrong with her. It is about domestic landscapes. It is about parenting versus personal priorities. It's about how we become people. It's about what we believe. It's about activism. It's about wars in other countries. It's about wars in our heads and in our own kitchens, and I loved it, and I have picked up all Sarah Moss's backlist and I will be reading them all in 2017, so you can hold me to that. And finally, at position number 1 on my list, it's actually a book, which I don't think you guys are expecting. So, okay, you ready? It is 450 from Paddington by Agatha Christie. I know. I've only just read this, like literally, I think I read it at the start of December. This year has been the year of Miss Marple for me. My Agatha Christie project kicked off last year, and I was going to read Marple and Poirot concurrently, but you know what, I couldn't. Marple just took over my life. I was listening to an audiobook a month. These books, guys, these books, the stuff that's in these books, the psychological and gender politics and the commentaries on life and in small communities and how that translates to the wider world. I had no idea that that was going to be all contained in these tiny little cozy murder mysteries from the Queen of Crime. How can so much of life fit into what is usually not even 350 pages? I do not know. So it starts with Mrs. McGillicuddy, who is on a train heading to see Miss Marple, her friend, before she goes on to the next leg of her journey. She is on a train. The train has temporarily stopped at a station. Another train has pulled up next to it, also temporarily stopped at the station, and she sees through the adjoining windows someone being murdered. But everybody thinks she's just a batty old bag who's fallen asleep and is talking absolute nonsense and doesn't want to listen to her. So she tells Miss Marple, who is really annoyed about ageism, and she gets on this, but not without showing her age in both the way that she can physically do it and the way that she can mentally do it. In 1957, guys, if somebody in 1957 can see the problems that we're having today and can point out how to fix them, it suggests to me that maybe in 2017 might be time that we got on fixing that. Just maybe. The reality is that all of you guys are highlights. You have helped to hold me together and helped to hold each other together through some real turmoil and strife this year, and I'm so proud of us. I think we're amazing. I think that really we can collectively do anything that we want to do, and I love BookTube. It's my happy place, it's my comfy place, it's where all of the cool people are at. And I hope to be here for a long time coming. I wish you only good things. I love you all. 2016 out.